Learning anything.
Ask everybody to come in and sit down now, please. And fill up the seats at the front, please. It helps. When I see black people sit so far at the back, I get nervous or wonder what's going on. I feel more confident with them closer to me. Could we settle down, please? Anthony, come in front here, man. Everybody running to hide. Could we settle down now? Could those in the passage coming in? All right, let's start. Brothers and sisters, welcome to the West Indian Center, Carmel Road. It gives me tremendous pleasure to be here with you this evening to share with the Brother Ashby, a number of his experiences and to lecture to you in relation to the books and so on that he has written. And I think one of the most common is the Egyptian Yoga. But before doing that, as customary, whenever we have an African occasion, we always pour libation. I don't have to explain to many of you here what libation is because I've seen your faces so often, and it's very nice to know that you continue to come and to visit the West Indian Center and take an interest in the lectures in which we're doing, because what we are actually doing is in a way setting you up, educating you, broadening your ideas, your views, bringing brothers and sisters from the continent and all over, so that you will be able to share with them those experiences, because a new day is at hand, and we want to be prepared when that new day comes around, that we will be efficient, able, and capable of creating a new civilization for us as African people. But before doing that, before getting into that lecture, I would like to pay homage and respect to the thousands of my ancestors, many of whom have paid the ultimate price with their lives for the liberty and dignity of us as African people. I'd like to pay tribute to those brothers. Can I ask you respectfully to stand, please? I'd like to pay tribute to all those brothers and sisters who have died and their bones line the Atlantic Ocean, the triangular trade, those in the continents, some of them still on the continent of Africa, those in the Caribbean, those in the Americas, and those in various Asia, China, even Russia. Yeah, many of our people died there, spreading civilization. And I would like to call in the name of few of them that come to mind readily, but this is only few, could never call them all. And some of those great Africans I like to call on people like Imhotep. When I call his name, would you say, yeah, please? I like to call on people like Imhotep, his spirit to be with us this evening and to open up our minds. I like to call on Ya Santiwa, Queen Nzinga, Marcus Messiah Garvey, Harriet Tubman. I like to call on, did I say Ya Santiwa? That's my favorite. Did I say Ya Santiwa? Yes. Can I call on people like Malcolm X? I call on Paul Bogle. I call on Henry Khrushchev. I call on Haiti. Dessalines. Help me. There's so many of our brothers and sisters. Could you call a few more? Yeah.
It's the German truth.
Yeah. I like to say We ask their presence to be with us here this evening, and may they not only stimulate our minds and our bodies, but make us strong and provide us with the strength that we will be able to move forward and create a new civilization. Thank you very much. Brothers and sisters, we in the Pan-Africanist movement recognize that they have to be changed. But in order for us to bring about that change, we also have to change ourselves. You could come this side and set up. Plug out my whole thing and you can set it up. Yes, but we also have to change. We have to clean ourselves up. We have to, because many of us still carry the baggage of the colonial legacy. Many of us still think like Europeans. Some of us even behave like Europeans. Some of us find difficulty even in changing our garments and wearing those garments that made us so proud and happy and lovely people as we were. But in order to do that, I like to say that we also have to dismantle a lot of myths that have been told about our people, about our history, and about those things that we held most sacred to us. And those are the spirit of our ancestors and the spirituality that came with which was philosophies for African people, but Europeans call it religion, and they changed it into a political aspect, and it no longer represents the manifestation, right, of the relationship between man and nature. It represents political expediency. It has no meaning for us as African people. Hence the reason we are doing what we are doing. And by having these conferences and having these lectures, we are hoping that you will be able, you yourself one day, to try and to make it possible. And I hope in my lifetime, when we will be able to dismantle Eurocentric system and this white supremacist authority which governs many of our lives. Before introducing Dr. Ashby to you, which I understand from my brothers and from some of his books I've read, is a very able brother, a brother who has done a tremendous amount of work and research. He's also a doctor. But in order to do that, I would like to introduce my brother, Brother Pepperkai, who is more closer to Dr. Ashby than myself, and will give you a far more detailed description about the quality of the brother. Brother Pepperkai.
Thank you, Nana. Brothers and sisters, greetings and appreciation for your patience of waiting. We started out at 3 o'clock and we were expecting to be here about 6, maybe a little past 6. We got here after 7, but we're here. It is always very good to be in the company of Nana, our esteemed and honored elder. Oftentimes when we have our prestigious visitors, they normally stay south, and we don't see much of them north. And when we understand that Dr. Ashby was due to visit, when he informed us that he'll be here for a short while, we told him that we'd like him, in fact he suggested that we did some book signing. And we said we'll do one in London, one in Birmingham, and one in Manchester. And when we told him the distance, he didn't quibble. He was quite amicable for the travel. And we're very fortunate because, I'll be quite honest with you, I haven't read a single one of Dr. Ashby's book. None of us have done a lot better than myself. And some of you may ask how it is that you're selling this brother's book, you have it all around you, and yet you haven't read one. The truth is, brothers and sisters, and oftentimes we tend to dress things up and nice up things, and the reality of our condition isn't told. And oftentimes, The term we use is main cook, buckle washer, and buckle hanging up. And it is sad because along the way, one gain experience. And it'd be good, particularly the younger ones, if they were showing not only an interest, but stability in trying to build on what the elders have advanced. For example, how many of us here in Manchester can say to Nana, ease up Nana, make we do this for you. But most of us would ease back and watch him take the strain. And in fact, worse, would run away with him. That's the truth. But regardless of what has happened in the past, one thing we say for sure, that as a people, we have a tradition of struggle, of continuity, and regardless of the obstacles, there's always those who are ever ready and able to move us forward. And brothers and sisters, oftentimes we embrace spirituality as an escape mechanism. You know, we begin to eat right, do our exercise, and other things, and feel that we feel good within ourselves, and we forget about everything else. I don't know how many of you have been listening to Radio 4, BBC World Service, and whatever news service that this information will broadcast on. And right now as we stand in Uganda, there's been a report of an outbreak of Ebola. And the health minister says to the people of Uganda, don't be alarmed, we have it under control. We have the World Health Organization, the UN, and other people coming in to help. The very same people who are responsible for the outbreak in the first place. This is the same Minister of Health who banned Professor Sally from practicing as a doctor in his own country. Why? Because Professor Sally has come up with a treatment, Marindina, that not only successfully put brakes on the AIDS virus and other diseases, and you'd believe that the health authority, the government of Uganda, would be excited of having one of their own able sons and daughters of the soil. Oh no. He was told, get out. Why? The same World Health Organization, the same UN, the same Glaxo, welcome and the others. Dictate the terms. And in fact, the reason why I mentioned that is that one of the strong points of Dr. Ashby is on self-reliance. Do for self. Self-transformation. And in fact, before we set up the book signing, because I haven't read any of his material, not because I don't want to, it's a question of time, I asked Sister Shola Ariwa, the author of Opening to Spirit, because she has met with him, she's a sister who understands spiritual matters much more than myself. I said, what kind of person is Dr. Ashby? You've met with him, you had a conference with him, watch him give his lectures and so on. He said, Pepekai, he's a very knowledgeable and well-informed person. So I wasn't just going to take the fact that his books are selling well and believe they're selling well. In fact, when I came here, the people already have them in their hands. And in fact, he came in from Egypt, he and his wife day before yesterday. And yesterday we were at meditation and chanting program. And people was very much uplifted by the spirit of the brother. He was in London, was in Birmingham, and wherever we went, people was uplifted by his energy and his spirit and his information. So we're very fortunate to have with us Dr. Muata Ashby, who holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in religion and a Doctor of Divinity degree in holistic healing. He's also a pastoral counselor and is a faculty member of the American Institute of Holistic Theology and an ordained minister. The brother has done extensive research in ancient Kemetic, ancient tradition. And that is the information he brings with us this evening. So we are truly in a Pan-African gathering. He lives in the States. His wife, I believe, is from the islands. In fact, at the program yesterday, this book was on the table. We're all familiar with Brother Nancy, one of the thread that binds us all. He recognized him. We all do. We're one people. Put your hands together and welcome Dr. Ashby. Yeah.
What's up?
What's up?
What's up? What's up, my brother? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Greetings to you all. As Brother Prepakai just mentioned, we just returned from another trip to Kenya. And before I began with the program, I wanted to introduce to you perhaps something that will be new to you, a new form of libation. Currently, the kind of libation that we do is to the ancestors. It is to those who have come before us, those who have, in our family and in our cultural struggle, come before us to lead the way. But there is another form of libation that I also want you to be aware of, and that is a libation that you will, those of you who have gone to Egypt, you may not have recognized it, but it is in plain view in all of the temples. In every temple that you go to, you will see this libation. It is not a libation to the ancestors. It is libation to the gods and goddesses. And perhaps sometimes as we go along through our lives, as we go along in our own personal struggle, our own particular struggle of life, we, because of our elders, we have been introduced to some wonderful traditions, some wonderful and really necessary aspects of our culture. And we need to be able to also take further steps in order to empower ourselves, in order to reach for that even higher culture that we need to. And you heard how it was asked of us to build on what our ancestors have done, on what our elders have done. Because we one day will become elders as well. And what will we bequeath to our children, to our youth? I see many youth here, possibly more so than some of the other meetings that we've had. And this is an extremely important aspect. We need to learn how to be an example for them, and in so doing,
we learn how to transform ourselves. It's a wonderful way that God has set up the world. But what is that example that we need to make? See, this is the question. If we pour libation to the gods and goddesses, what are we really doing? What does it really mean? If I tell you to pour libation to one of the gods and goddesses, you do not know anything about them. You know about Marcus Garvey, you know about Queen Nzinga, you know about so many things. And what the knowledge that I'm bringing to you is the knowledge of our highest philosophy, the pinnacle of our culture, which has been forgotten, which has been sort of put into the background. It's sort of dormant, asleep. And in order to do that, I need to tell you, first of all, about the gods and goddesses, our gods and goddesses. First of all, I don't want you to be scared, because our gods and goddesses are not hell and damnation gods and goddesses. They're going to come and crush you if you don't do this, or going to destroy you, or going to come and hurt you in any kind of way, shape, or form. It's not any kind of voodoo. It's not any kind of black magic or occult. This is nonsense. This is what we're doing here is a science of self-transformation, a science of empowerment, a science of culture, a science of civilization that actually allowed this entire world to be born. The gods and goddesses are actually the powers of the universe, the Neteru, as they are called. And they are to be likened to the Yoruba Orishas. They are to be likened to the divinities of the Dogons in Mali. But the ignorance that we have, the inability to grow and empower ourselves to grasp onto, to hold onto, to use our own knowledge due to our own fear, due to our ignorance, due to our miseducation. This has led to a damaging situation in which we don't have the capacity even to hold on to our own legacy, our own power, our own thought, our own feeling. And this is the work of Kemetic yoga. So before we go on, I'd like to pour the libation. And as I do so, I'm going to name some of the gods and goddesses, some of the Neteru, and I'd like you to say, after I say the name, I'd like you to say Dua, and then the god's name, the divinity's name, the god or goddess name. So if I say Ra, I want you to say Dua Ra. Okay? Okay?
Yeah. Well, the weather is cold, but it's all right. You want to turn on the fan?
Dua means adoration.
Adoration.
Adoration to the divine in the form of Ra, in the form of, as we go along, we will see. Dua Ra.
Dua Ra.
Dua Nut.
Dua Nut.
Dua Heteru.
Dua Heteru.
Dua Set.
Dua Set.
Dua Sar.
Dua Sar.
Dua Heru.
Dua Heru.
These are the basic divinities which, based on Anunian theology, Anunian theology means the theology of the city of Anu in ancient Egypt, brought forth creation. And we will talk a little bit more about them as we go along. Ra, as I'm sure you've heard the name, symbolizes not the sun, but the fire principle of creation. Amun Ra, the innermost essence, which manifests as the fire, as the sun. Ancient Kemet never, at no time, in any period, held a polytheistic view of creation, polytheistic view of theology. This is the first thing that we must throw out completely. The gods and goddesses are all emanations of the one supreme being, period. Maybe you have heard writings in reference to a king called Akhenaten, saying that he was the first monotheist, and so on and so forth, even before Moses. Well, that is actually a misconception. Akhenaten was actually trying to reform Kemetic religion to go back to the original understanding of the Supreme Being. However, many people have used that and tried to, and misunderstandingly showing that there was monotheism in ancient Egypt actually was already there from the earliest time. However, it is made easier for people to understand when you break things down. When we call this aspect of the divinity Nu, the goddess of the heavens, and this aspect of the divinity, we call that Geb, that's the earth. Then we start working with things in pieces so that we can understand, because God is too much. God is too great. God is too transcendental for us to take it all in one piece. But when we master the pieces, when we put it all together, this is when we're actually putting ourselves together. We're actually putting our own consciousness together. In the Purdom Peru text, in the Pyramid text, which is the earliest version of our scripture, there is a teaching about eating the gods, eating them, eating the gods and goddesses, eating them back. And as you do so, as you eat them, and eat them in the form of offerings, offerings of bread, offerings of wine. Do you recognize any of these offerings? As you do so, you're actually eating back yourself and making yourself whole. You're taking back this power, you're taking back that power. Instead of being a lowly, ignorant human being, now you are empowered. Now you are whole. And this is the origin of the Eucharist, ritual of the Christian faith. The origin of the resurrection comes from the Assyrian resurrection, that divinity which was murdered by his brother, chopped into pieces, left to die. That divinity who was resurrected by his wife, Aset, and through their union gave birth to Heru. What does all this mean? Is this some kind of a primitive entertainment? Some kind of primitive story that people sitting around a fire created for? Because of their ignorance to understand the universe? Read our book, The Assyrian Resurrection. And in the second volume, The Mystical Teachings of the Assyrian Resurrection. We'll show you a different understanding. In fact, this is one of the greatest stories. It's a myth, and myth is a spiritual language which gives you the richness of your culture. It gives you an understanding of who you are as a human being, where you come from, where you're going, and how to get there. In fact, all of these divinities are aspects of your very consciousness. Set is your ego, which is constantly attacking your personality, your desires, your weaknesses, your anxieties, your failures. All this is set within you. The more a person is caught up in the world, the more a person is weakened by their desires, the more enslaved that person becomes. How does a person deal with this? Through the goddess power, the goddess Aset. Aset means knowledge, wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom puts together the pieces of the consciousness, which Set has chopped into pieces, which Set has destroyed. When a Set comes in, Heru is born. That is your aspiration. That is the redeeming aspect of your consciousness. When Heru is born, that is the aspiring king. Every king or queen was Heru. You know that there were kings and queens in ancient Egypt who ruled the country. Every ruler becomes Heru. Heru is that person who does battle against Set and who defeats Set. Set is, again, your ego. Set is unrighteousness. When that person becomes Heru, when you ascend to the throne, because all of you are princes and princesses, when you ascend to the throne, that means that you have become gods and goddesses of yourselves, of your own. What kind of prospect is that? To become a god or goddess walking the earth. What would you do as a god or a goddess walking the earth? Would you walk around with your head bowed and sitting at the back, the way the brother was talking about earlier, and being shy? Would you accept second best? Would you accept the glass ceiling? Would you accept anything that is unrighteous? Getting at is that if you truly want to be warriors, if you truly want to be revolutionaries, if you truly want to be people who are meeting the challenge of life, not just as a culture, because just living in the world as a human being is hard enough. Just getting to your next meal and how are you going to pay the rent, all this kind of, this is hard enough. Not on the struggle as a culture. Getting at is that if you truly want to be a revolutionary, you have to deal with some serious issues of self-knowledge, of self-empowerment.
True.
It's not about guns. It's not about bombs. It's not about Ebola viruses. These are minor in comparison to who you are essentially. Do you realize that? The power that you have, if you are a self-realized human being, greater than Mr. Clinton, is greater than any foreign power. But who will deal with the serious issues of self? Because it's easier to go out and buy a gun, isn't it? Than to do the serious study and research that is necessary to enlighten yourself. Because, and also it's less effective because once you have your gun, they can always take the gun out of your hands. But once the knowledge is firmly established, and not just the knowledge, but the understanding. See, we have lots of information. But who really understands what it means and how to apply it? See, many of you here with wonderful clothing, and I come here and I get the good vibration, positive vibration at the center. And I see lots of Kemetic icons even, along with the African textiles and so on and so forth, which is wonderful. You must realize that we've had this for a number of years. And African textiles and symbols, even Kemetic symbols, won't help you if you don't understand their meaning and how to apply them. They're a good start. But where do we go from here? As I said before, if you're truly revolutionaries, How do you tap into the greatest power in the universe? I was like to give the joke. It's like, when, you know how when you have a young child, and they're being picked on by older children in school, and that child has an older brother. He said, oh, I'm going to call my older brother on you, and he's going to come beat you up, telling you, talk to the bully. You here, and we're in the States, and other places, we feel like minorities. We feel weak. We feel that we can't do anything. And you have an older brother that you haven't called upon. And you call upon the ancestors, and that's fine. We have to realize the ancestors, most of them, are people like yourselves. Some of them were great. They were people who transcended. But most of them are people like yourselves, people who are struggling, people who are... what I'm getting at, in a subtle way, and I'll be more direct about it, is how about calling directly on the source of power? How about going directly to the very center? Where is that center to be found? Is it someplace in Africa? Do you have to go to Kemet in order to find that source of power? Do you have to go to Senegal? Do you have to go to America, where we're based? Do you have to go to the moon? Thankfully, no. That center is actually right here. It's actually sitting in your chairs right now. And how are we to discover that center of power? There's what I was scheduled to talk about here tonight is about the art and discipline of meditation. Last week when we were in London, we did one of the talks, and I asked if anyone has practiced meditation, or what they knew of meditation. So, it's difficult, it's hard. Well, you see what I said? It's easy to go and pick up a gun, right? Easy to get a stick, easy to yell at someone, it's easy to complain, easy to curse, easy to turn on the radio or TV and distract yourself. Hard to turn everything off and make silence and deal with the tough issues of your own failings, your own failures, your own misgivings. It's easy to blame somebody. Oh, they're doing this to me. They're keeping me down and they're holding me back. What can I do? And you have your cricket, you have your football here, you have your package stores, you have your supermarkets with the meat. These are all facilitators for you to lose your energy. And we have those over there too. And you're not the only ones that are being facilitated to lose your energy. There are other cultures as well, even the dominant culture. And as the brother said earlier, following on the path of the master is not the way to overcome the master. You think, oh, I must become like this person. And I must adopt their ways, and I must... I think that has proven to be a fallacy now. And we're going to talk about now some of the disciplines that we have, shall we say, rediscovered. Many of you, when you think of the practice of meditation, and meditation is a science of self-discovery. First of all, I should say that as you sit here, it's a Kemetic proverb that goes, Men and women are mortal gods and goddesses. The gods and goddesses are immortal men and women. As you sit here, you believe that you are individual human beings. You believe that you have come from a particular family, a particular country, a particular culture, a particular world. You have fallen. It's like Malcolm would have said, you've been bamboozled.
That's true.
You've been had.
Would
Been hoodwinked, right. That was never part of our culture. Never. We have a much greater teaching. We are immortal souls on a journey through the world. We're not products of eggs and sperms. That is just the vehicle for the spirit. When this body is gone, what happens to the spirit? When this body came into existence, where did the spirit come from? I know you have asked yourself these questions. Everybody does. But at some point, you don't know where to go for answers. You don't know how to search for answers. So you go on with life. You got to pay your mortgage. You got to deal with life as it presents to you. Hoping that one day, perhaps in your back of your mind, hoping one day that something will happen. It was never part of our culture, never part of our tradition. But falling into the world, and this world is a world full of, that is dominated by Western culture, is full of worldly desires, which are continually fanned up. The flames of your desire continue fanned up everywhere you look. Every time you turn on the television, your desire is being fanned. It's like gasoline being poured on a fire. Every time you go out to the supermarket, every time you go out and drive your car, you see billboards. Every time you talk to someone who is not initiated into this philosophy, your desires are being flamed up. You should talk to somebody ignorant, somebody who is supporting and promoting ignorance. That's why centers like this are important. You need to come here and you need to be able to gather with other people of knowledge, especially with elders. Our culture was never one of a throwaway society. Funny how the same people who are throwing out the elders in Western culture, they become elders and they get thrown out too. There's a little parable about this. There's a father who grew old, and he was living with his son. His son and his wife had a child, and the house was a little small, so they were getting filled up, and the wife started juking the husband on the side, saying, hey, get rid of this old man. We don't need him, and he's taking up expenses, and taking up space, and he's a bother. So he finally said, okay. The son said, okay, let me get rid of him. So, took the feeble old man, carried him to the river, and he had a basket with him. The idea was to put him in the basket and just let him float down the river and fall in and die. So the old man said, son, why don't you just throw me in the river and save the basket for yourself? Because your son is going to do the same thing to you when it's your turn. And this is the kind of foolishness that we have been living by. In ignorance, we just go along with it. Why do we go along with it? When do we make our own culture and live by our own culture? Elders are to be revered, as well as young ones. What about the saying that it takes a village to raise one child? Just to give you an example of what that means today. How do you all feel about what you see on television? How do you control what your children view? As a community. Just because somebody of African descent is producing music, it doesn't mean that that's good music for them to listen to. Just because they write a book doesn't mean it's a good thing for them to read it. And we have to get out of this notion that just because it's one of us, that we should support it. And that we should back them up. I think many of you here have seen the fallacy of that too. Because, the reason is because ignorance and weakness in the human personality allows that personality to hurt even their own family, even their own self. So how can you promote that? How can you go along with that? I'm getting at is a higher principle called Ma'at. Ma'at is the principle of righteousness, truth, and order, which transcends blood. The principle of truth. And how does that have to be applied? If someone is speaking untruth, it is your brother, it is your sister, your father, your daughter, whatever it may be, that person is not to be supported. And this is one of our hardest principles to follow. That is Ma'at. That is our teaching of our sages and saints of ancient times. And just like the Hindus have their sages, they have Valmiki, they have Manu, they have so many. Just like the Chinese have Confucius, they have Lao Tzu, we have Imhotep, we have Taotek, and so many others. And why are you not listening to those? To this Western culture who doesn't listen even to their own sages. Because they're following the sage of Hollywood, Wall Street. And that's not a sage, that is a scourge on humanity. You must follow the path of truth, and truth shall set you free, doesn't it? But it's hard to follow truth. Nobody said it was going to be easy. But the rewards are beyond your expectations. You must learn to be examples of truth, examples of righteousness, examples of order. And this gives you the capacity, it gives you the legitimacy to enter into the shrine, to make the libation to the gods and goddesses. This is a different kind of practice. As you worship with an understanding of the nature of the Neteru, as you live and practice the teaching that the sages have laid out, there is a reciprocal movement that occurs. The gods and goddesses move towards you and they empower you. In fact, you discover their power within you. That is the propitiation that is being done with the Kemetic libation. Understanding, feeling, power in every step. This is the process that is being engendered. If you live in accordance with truth, that allows you to have a clear mind, a peaceful mind. And meditation, which was once hard, becomes very easy. The reason meditation is hard is because you lead a distracted life. You're into things that you shouldn't be into to begin with. talking too much, laughing too much, jumping up and down too much. I mean, it's too much activity, too much. Your mind is agitated. You'll always find it difficult to concentrate your mind, difficult to settle your mind. Have you seen those of you who come from the islands, you've seen storms. You've seen the waters when the winds are whipping up the storm. You've seen the waters when the storm has gone away, when there is total calm. The difference? You can see crystal clear. So how can you expect me to come and tell you the greatest secrets of the universe in an agitated mind that is whipped up, and you have all of the sand and all of the creatures that are in the water and all the waves making all the splashing and covering everything up? And then you have a full understanding of what I'm saying. Because we've given already some wonderful truths, but the depths of these truths, how can you have a true understanding for yourself? Because I don't want you just to believe what I'm saying. I want you to feel it. I want you to know it. And the discipline of mind allows you to have the capacity to sit down and discover divinity within yourself. And once you have discovered divinity in yourself, what can you not do in the world? What can you not accomplish? What challenge can you not overcome? Can there be any challenge you cannot overcome? As an individual, as a group? People ask where all these books came from. How did it happen? So we didn't have great resources to do it. We didn't have just an ordinary human being who led a worldly life before and who essentially got tired of failure in life and decided to reach for something higher. So Dr. Ashby is not some extraordinary. Dr. Ashby is like everyone else. Every one of you has that same power within you. If you follow the path that has been laid out, the path that allowed our ancestors to create a culture which persisted and which flourished for thousands of years, who by the time that it was declining, other cultures were coming out of their Stone Age. Do you realize that? You know what that means? And what makes us so arrogant to believe that what's going on now, is so great? Let me ask you this. Do you think that this culture is going to last for thousands of years with the destruction of the ozone, destruction of the Amazon, the destruction of nature? We were just on the way over here listening to one of your polls. You remember we're listening to radio, how there's dissatisfaction in every quarter of society. Dissatisfaction with your job, dissatisfaction with your family life, dissatisfaction with sex, dissatisfaction with... No wonder there's a package store in every corner. You need it. You gotta have something, otherwise you kill yourself, right? Nothing to live for. I would kill myself too if I had anything better to live for. Because this world is a problem. But I don't live for this world. I live someplace else. How about you? Where do you want to live? The art of meditation. Mostly you think of, when we say the word meditation, mostly you think of Indians, people from India, sitting in a cross-legged posture, closing their eyes, transcending the world. We don't think of Africans doing that. You think of Africans mostly in a West African sense. You think of lots of djembe drums, right? You think of lots of chanting all night, and fires, and dancing, exuberant dancing. And that was there too, but there's another kind of practice. See, this is what I'm getting at. We have lost the balance. We have to know when to run, but also we have to know when to sit. Because when you sit, then you can really run, ironically. When you discover the potential of power within you, then you can really express power outside in your personality, in your life. And yes, we have discovered the earliest practice of meditation in history, in this historical period, in ancient Egypt. How many of you here practice meditation regularly? When I describe to you the steps of meditation, perhaps we'll ask that question again. We have 2 people out of how many people are here? I kid you not. Whatever struggle you have in your life, whatever problem you have in your life, whatever you need to deal with, meditation is the key. But first step I already gave you is Ma. You must live in righteousness, order, truth. Because meditation is like a bird with 2 wings. And you know a bird can't fly with 1 wing. If you meditate for 50 minutes a day, what do you do for the 23 hours and 45 minutes the rest of the day? Meditate for 50 minutes a day, and then you run around shouting and screaming and going to work and cursing and watching television. It's not going to work. It can't work. You must live by Ma'at. And there's so much that goes into Ma'at that we'd have to do a separate lecture just for Ma'at. And today is just for meditation. Meditation, the formal practice of meditation has 4 aspects actually. And we have those outlined in 2 books. Actually, it's, let me count them here so we keep count of where we're going. 8 books. Different kinds of meditation, different disciplines of meditation. See, the ancients discovered that the evolution of the human soul requires a particular kind of practice. There are some of you who are very intellectual. You love reading Muata's books. You love reading other authors' books, and you like enlightening yourself. You like dealing with the mind. And there's a discipline called a wisdom meditation, and that is based on the teachings of the temple of Aset. Aset is Isis, is what the Greeks call Isis. And the goddess, as I said earlier, is the goddess of wisdom. 3 steps in that discipline. First, listening to the teachings given by the priests and priestesses. Second, reflecting upon those teachings and living in accordance with those teachings. And then entering into a formal practice of allowing your mind to flow towards that single and supreme divinity that is the basis of the teaching. And this exact discipline you find in Hinduism, described the same way, thousands of years later. Isn't that an interesting fact?
Yes, you get it from us.
And they call it yoga. They call it wisdom yoga. And that's why we have used, in order to translate, the Egyptian yoga title, the Kemetic title is Smaitawi. But if I call the book Smaitawi, who would be able to understand what I'm talking about, what's going on? Egyptian yoga is much more easier for us to understand in English. That's a translation. Yoga means any discipline that allows you to unite your lower self with your higher self. Period. It is not an Indian exclusive teaching. It is a universal teaching. There are people who they don't like to deal with the mind. They don't like reading books. They like to feel. And they like to sing to the divine. They like to express their heart and their love for the divine. And that is called devotion yoga. And this form of yoga practice, called usha in ancient Egypt, which means worship. This is the most prominent one that people see as soon as you step off the plane in Egypt and you go to the holy sites. This is what you see. This is all you see. In the beginning, if you look to the depth, you see all these other things I'm talking about as well. But this is the one that is most prominent, devotion. Always offerings to the gods and goddesses. Libations to the gods and goddesses. Go back and you will see what I'm talking about. What are the stages of devotion yoga? First stage is the myth. Remember I told you the myth of the Assyrian resurrection, the myth of Asar, how he came to be the king of ancient Egypt. After Ra, the Supreme Being, sent him down as an avatar to lead human beings. You know of anyone else who was sent down to the world to lead human beings to righteousness and truth?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha.
Yeah.
They're called avatars. They are divine incarnations sent down for specific purpose as human beings. But in Kemetic philosophy, we have something much even more wonderful than that. It's not just a male incarnation, it's a female incarnation, also a double incarnation. Because Kemetic philosophy is not a male-dominant philosophy. This is one of the big failings of Western culture. It's one of the big failings of those who follow Western culture as well. The denigration of women, the subjugation of women, the enslavement of women. It's the downfall of society, downfall of culture. And at no time since has the world seen the greatness and order in society, order in family, as was seen in ancient times. You think it's funny how you come into this culture and you grow up in this culture and everything, all the books, you go to the library and they give you all the statistics and they tell you what is normal. How much smallpox there should be, how much colds people should get a year, how much is acceptable, how much indigestion you should be dealing with in life. They give this all to you. And basically what is happening is that you're being given statistics of a disease culture, and this is the normalcy within that disease culture that you're being given. Go and ask Imhotep, the greatest doctor, and see if it's acceptable for you to have all the disease of this culture. No, it's not acceptable. It was never acceptable. But if you want to eat meat, if you want to smoke, if you want to eat dairy products, it's fine. That's how it should be. If we're going to have poison in society, this is how the statistics are going to be laid out. And if you lead a life based on the Western ideal, which is greed and fulfillment of personal desires, this is the kind of level of divorce rate that you're going to have, the level of venereal diseases that you're going to have, right? And this should be normal. But if you're developing as strong personalities, you're not going to accept that. Remember what I said before, you're walking as gods and goddesses. You're aspiring to something greater. You're not going to accept that. And even more than that, see, you have to be prepared to go all the way in your rejection of that. Because the world would try with all its might to force this on you. What I'm getting at is that you have to be prepared even unto death not to accept. And Brother mentioned earlier in the libation, some of our ancestors who willingly jumped off the boats. Where is that kind of conviction? Where would the slave trade have been if everyone that's been captured did that? You wouldn't be here right now. You'd be back in Africa. And there would be a different culture going on there. And when the Portuguese first came down there, and the French, or whoever came down there trying to catch people, and you sent them running on their way, what would happen? What happened to you that you were not able to do that? That you wanted life so dearly, even to the point of accepting rubbish, garbage for a life. And there was an interview done with back in the 30s, and you think I'm talking, I'm talking, it's too much. I can't deal with this. We have to live, and we have to survive, and we have to. And I say, no, you should look at life that way, because as soon as you start looking that way, you will compromise your morals, and you'll compromise your freedom. And life is not worth living without freedom. It's not. There's a recording back in the 30s of people who had survived, some of the last people who had survived as slaves. And one gentleman, an ex-slave, when he was in his 80s, they interviewed him and they said, what do you think of your life? Was it worth it? And how do you see the world now? And so his answer was, if I had known what was going to happen, I would have killed myself when I was younger. Life is not worth living as a slave. And you already know that. That's why you take drugs. That's why you drink. That's why you try to do all the things that give you pleasure in life. You try to run to sex. You try to run to the nice spicy foods. You try to go have parties so you don't have to think about your life. But conquering life doesn't mean running away from life. It means facing life head on and conquering life. So those of you who think that spirituality, authentic spirituality, is as the slave trade has given it, a place for you to go and sing and jump up and shout hallelujah and use up all your energy so you can feel all like you've worked up a good sweat, you've done something good, and go home. I tell you, you go to Karnak Temple, the biggest surviving temple in ancient Egypt, and you know that there were giants there.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to achieve is to bring that high culture, that power back for our times. We have new pyramids to create. We have new temples to create, new greatness to achieve. And that is what we get from myth. How to understand the gods and goddesses, how to worship them, how to devote to them, how to glorify them, because another ancient Egyptian saying that you glorify the divine, and the divine glorifies you. Forget about this nonsense of being a minuscule, like a rat, like a mouse. Earlier today, we had a few minutes, and my spiritual partner and I went to visit the St. Paul's Cathedral. So while I'm here in Europe, check out. I've studied them previously, but let me check them out firsthand. Went to Notre Dame in France as we went to Paris on the way to Egypt, Cameroon. And there was a striking difference that I noticed. The striking difference that I noticed was that in Kemet, in the temples, you see libations, you see worship of the gods and goddesses. But also, the texts also say something along the following lines. Nesubiti, which means the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, and it gives the name. And the king really means that perfected human being making the offering. That's really what it means. Every human being is that royalty. Se neter di anjed was awet abner. And what these Kemetic words mean is that worship of the gods and goddesses causes them to give health, stability, prosperity, joy, happiness. When I went to St. Paul's, and you can go and see what I mean, instead of seeing worship of the divine, instead of seeing a reciprocal, because you're not supposed to go to church and yes. I grew up as a Christian, so I know, as a Catholic, which is the most rabid kind of Christianity that you have. And you're supposed to genuflect and be diminutive and to be humble and to be small. That's what this church is designed to do. Your devotion is allowed, but as a small being to a great being. And in Kemetic philosophy, we have understanding that you are actually worshiping yourself. You're actually worshiping that best thing that is within you, the glory that is within you, that divinity within you. That is called mysticism. You are one with the gods and goddesses. You are. But in this Western kind of understanding, no. You are worshiping something that is greater than you and something that you can't even touch, you can't even see, you can't even understand, but you must. And then if you don't, then have the fear on you that God's going to come and crush you one day, or He's going to send you to hell because you're a sinner. And this philosophy originally came out of Kemet, and this is how it's been twisted. So I went to St. Paul, and instead of seeing the gods and goddesses all around, I see tombs of war heroes. Lord Nelson. This general, that general. I don't see any women. And that's another big problem. I don't see any authentic, even for the Western cultural point of view, saints and sages are like the gods and goddesses. I didn't even see that in the Anglican Church, in the English Church. So that was troubling. So basically what you're having here is a miseducation where you are being shown how to revere war heroes. So you can be a good war hero one day for your country, for God and country and all this kind of nonsense. You don't forget about God and country, and what about yourself and your family? And about the supreme divinity that is within you. And let them do whatever they want to do. Because one day, when the temples do start coming back, the light that is within the temple will be like a overshadowing power which will allow everyone to see. So don't worry about re-educating Western culture. How about re-educating yourself? How about you becoming strong and being an example and not waiting to be validated by someone who is dysfunctional already? How about revering your own sages, your own scholars, and following in their footsteps? You becoming a scholar, you becoming sages and saints. That's what it's supposed to be. You think because you're an ordinary person that you don't have access to sagehood, to sainthood? Another misconception. Oh, Dr. Ashby's up there, or Imhotep was up there, and Jesus, all these people. I'm just a mortal human being, and I make mistakes. Once again, you've been bamboozled. You've been had. What does the Bible say? Be perfect like your God and Father is in heaven. Perfect. What is Jesus trying to say with that? Oh, but I'm human, and all humans make mistakes. It means being perfect in your conscious awareness of your divinity. And that is possible. Always has been possible, always will be possible. If you believe in God, I know you all do, believe in a supreme divinity. If you truly believe, why do you wrestle with this pettiness of nonsense that they're trying to hand you? So mythology gives you all the insights into these, shows you how to devote yourself to the divine, how to worship the divine. Part of worshiping the divine is worshiping yourself, worshiping your culture, worshiping your family, and humanity, and the world, as an expression of the divine. And this is another thing that we have trouble with. See, the philosophy of anger and hatred that we have in our culture that has been used as a response to racism. You know what I mean? That some of our leaders have tried to light a fire under us by getting us angry about what has been done to us and what all the atrocities that continue and all this kind of thing. If anger was to be the answer, shouldn't have been the answer, because we're pretty angry, haven't we? We're so angry that we're killing ourselves, shooting ourselves, poisoning ourselves. When does your anger get redirected towards the true source, which is ignorance? Ignorance in their camp, ignorance in your camp. Once again, meditation is the key to eradicate, to get rid of that ignorance. And to focus your energy towards where it truly needs to be. we have before us, we're on the threshold of so many wonderful things. I could go on all evening talking about the disciplines of meditation. Let me just go briefly before it gets too much later. How are we doing on time?
You're all right. This is our building.
Excellent. Excellent. We don't have to be out.
No, they don't throw you out at certain times. Stay as long as you want.
The book I was talking to you about just now is The Wisdom of Vices. And the devotional path. The wisdom of vices is the wisdom path, the devotional path is the blooming lotus. Another form of meditation, which is not the book we ran out of, is not here, is the wisdom of Muata. That is the path of Muata, the path of righteous action. The path of living in such a way that you become one with the goddess of order in the cosmos. How does that work? First, you must have the wisdom of Muata. How does, and most of you have heard of the 42 laws of Muata, you've heard of the negative confessions, you've heard of, perhaps some of you have heard of the wisdom texts, which actually are the basis from which the 42 principles come. If you haven't heard of those, why haven't you heard of those? The writings of Sage Tautek, the writings of Sage Kagami, the writings of Sage Annie.
Because the distribution and circulation of black authorship within Britain is being cut down to quality as with music and the arts. You have to come to us.
Well, how come you're not demanding from Mr. Pepperkai? Demanding from me?
We have been through a breakdown and a deconstruction which comes from politics right down to the grassroots. So many of us are faced with chaos and sick health and bereavement, and we are losing touch because of day-to-day realities of being under siege in our own area, our own neighborhood.
That's correct.
Is are all those problems affecting you?
Affecting all of us.
All of those problems affect many of the leadership.
No, I'm not talking about many of the leaders. I'm talking about you.
All those problems, yes, they affect me.
And are they preventing you from pursuing? See what I'm getting at?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I acknowledge these problems, and I have all evening. But all I'm getting at is that let us not focus on our cultural problems, let's focus on our individual problems, because our individual empowerment is actually the empowerment of our culture. Good.
On the basis of that, the individuals, there are some cultures within the Caribbean and perhaps within America, but I can talk about the Caribbean. There are some cultures which recognize that there is a form of making the individual as an individual within the context of a culture, and the future of liberation is around which culture accesses you to the Almighty Creator in a way that is effective. And for me, that is within a culture I was raised in, and I can see how that many affect the individual, and one individual can affect many. And getting to the point where you look at yourself as an individual is vital, especially in reaching out to a culture which allows you to know the force of the Creator as a personal and individual experience that cannot be broken down, or anyone witness that it is not in existence for you as an individual.
So I can tell you meditate.
Okay, it goes beyond religion.
It's true. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm trying to impart. That understanding. We have to, because if I was waiting until our Mr. Pepperkais in the States were to bring the kind of knowledge that we're talking about here, if I was to talk about how the power structure in the States and Amazon.com and all the major book distributors, Doubleday, and how they do not want to print Muata's books, how Muata has to print his own books. If I was to wait, I wouldn't be here, because you wouldn't, this website would know about me, you will not know about me.
And you'll get it in one print, but they won't be allowed to reprint it if you're still down and all that kind of nonsense. It's on the experience of an author.
And we have, as I'm getting at, is that we have to move beyond that from even from our personal point of view, from our individual point of view, which is what you began to say, so that as individuals we can begin to empower ourselves, our families, our community. And these arts, which is really, philosophy is actually an art that must be learned, how to be practiced, how to be applied. Because once you learn the art, you'll not be like like those people who would be they're 30, 40 years old and they still live at home with their parents. See, that's how we are now. As a culture, you're still living with your parents and you don't want to get out of the house. They're trying to kick you out all the time, but you don't want to get out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, let's face it. Let's face it. And it's I don't know how it is here for you guys. But in the States, at meetings like this, African cultural meetings and Pan-African meetings, people are always fond of saying, oh, they are our children. And they came from us. And yet, if they came from us, how come we're not acting as parents? Like we're not acting the right way to show the example of how to live. Still eating the fatbacks and pork chops and Burger Kings and the slave food. Why?
That's right.
It doesn't work. It's not going to work. All I know is that for my sake, for my part, I am here, I'm disseminating, I am publishing, I'm producing, and this is going to go on until I'm finished. Someone else will take up after that. Some of my students will take up after that. What about you? What are you doing? You don't have to publish necessarily. If you're an engineer, you can, through your engineering, through your capacity, through your lawyering, if you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you can apply these principles. But first and foremost, being a righteous example in your life, in your family, in your community. Enlightening yourself as well as enlightening others. The meditation, the ancient Egyptian path to enlightenment, and the Glorious Light meditation system. These books, The Serpent Power, as well as our latest one, which is the Book of the Dead. This is the one of the very latest, which actually just came out a couple of months ago. These are actually books on meditation. People think of them as philosophies, and part of it is philosophy. But actually, they are books of meditation, because what was going on in the temple is actually a meditation. Meditation on becoming divine. And some of you may get scared to hear me say that, because it's blasphemy, actually. The way to understand Christianity, we're saying you are one with God. What kind of... But doesn't the Bible say that anywhere?
Yeah,
Oh, and the Father are one?
that's correct.
Don't you know that God is within thee? In your Orthodox Bible, let alone the Gnostic Gospels that were taken out, which are mystical texts. Even in your Orthodox Bible, doesn't it say that? How come your priests and your pastors don't deal with those statements? Have you noticed that? These are the keys to Christianity, and how come it's not dealt with? Read our book, Christian Yoga. If you like the path of Christianity, it's wonderful. I like Christianity too. Go that way. If you like the Kemetic path, there's so many other books that you can have. As well as if you like Hinduism, show you how actually the Kemetic philosophy is embedded in Hinduism also. A new booklet, I don't know if we have any left, which is the Indus Kemet Kush. Trying to show you is that all roads lead to Kemet. If you like Islam, study Kemetic philosophy and you see how you'll really practice Islam. The Book of the Dead. And Egyptian yoga, this one I'm holding here, is like a overall view of everything. All these books, all these other books are actually expansions on what is in here. So if you're looking for one book to get, you should get this one. But if you have some particular interest of what I've spoken about, you should go to that book also, to that particular book that allows you to expand on that path. Especially as the sister said, and just in case the books are hard to get later, because I've been hearing some books are hard to get out here, get it while you can. And there's a saying of a yogi who we know, who once said, money goes, wisdom stays.
Very true.
Don't allow your limitation. Oh, I got to pay rent. Oh, I got to pay the bills. I got to pay for food. So you need to have. There are 3 kinds of food, and another book that we don't have, which is sold out, which is the Kemetic diet, on one of my latest books, talking about the purification of the mind, body, and soul. What kind of diet should you have? What kind of fasting practices were done in ancient Egypt to bring health to the society? Because I've alluded to this already. You go to the supermarket, if you're not going to the produce section, you don't realize that you're not eating real food. I don't know if you know this. Then you wonder, why am I getting sick? Why am I getting fat? Why do I have all these problems? Why? You're not eating real food, you're eating poison. But hopefully we're going to get some books back out to Ms. Pepekai as soon as we get back to the States. That's one of the most needed books that we have produced. Because food is of 3 kinds. You mostly know of food for your body. And you're struggling with that as it is. So meditation will help you to get that willpower in order to deal with that issue. The reason why you can't do it is because you're running around, your mind agitated, running after the world, and you don't sit and become empowered. When your mind is weak, you're going to be a wonderful slave. Trust me. When your mind is powerful, you cannot be enslaved in any capacity, in any way, shape, or form. And if the books are hard to get, it's because they don't want you to get them, and it's because they'll empower you, so you better run after it and get it. Do whatever you have to do. That's what I did. I started to realize these issues. I went to whatever talks I could get to, whatever book I thought I needed to get, even though I didn't read it right then. I got it, and I had it on my shelf. I know some of you are like that. You have your big, expanding library, and it's there. And you attack it when it's the right time. But you need facilitation also, and that's why I'm here. Yeah, it was a long ride coming here. But I took a little nap on the way, so I'm good. Because that's what I realized in my upbringing, my spiritual upbringing of my own, that I couldn't do it by myself. I needed to be initiated by sages and saints. I needed to practice purification of the mind, body, and soul. Body through the food that you eat, the mind through the books that you read, the television shows that you watch, the music that you listen to. This is all food for the mind. And food for the soul, which comes from meditation. Nothing in this world can feed your soul what it needs, except the divine. You need to know how to discover that divine self within you. And that is what these books allow you to do. The final one I'll talk about is the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is actually a meditation on becoming one with the divine self. Religion has 3 steps. I talked about the myth. The myth is the first step, Easter and resurrection. But once you have a myth, what do you do with that myth? Is it fine for you to run around and say, oh, I believe in Osiris, I believe in Isis. This is my culture, I wear an ankh. I wear the eye, I have the eye. And so many people do that. And it's okay, because it's a good start. It really is good, actually. I'd rather you have that than wearing, the pump chains with the 9mm guns on the end of the chain. You know what I'm talking about, the gold chain and the foolishness. That nonsense. Because what you hold around your neck, don't you realize that's what you believe in? If you believe in violence, you wear guns, that's what you believe. I see many of you with arms, and I know what you believe. You believe in something greater, something higher. Something that's going to liberate you. And now you just need to be facilitated in your understanding of that. And this book represents the second stage of religion, which is the reflection ritual stage. That is what the Purdom Haru is all about, what you know as the Book of the Dead. If that ritual, if that reflection is perfected, that leads you to the third stage of religion, which actually is a meditative movement, a metaphysical movement of transcending your life as you know it. That's what the Purdom Haru is really all about. I know many of you have seen translations by Western authors. They give you a little literal translation. And if you're like me, the first time I picked it up, I just put it right down. I couldn't deal with it. I had to do so much study and so much research and so much meditation in order to be ready and this book is like a sort of a pinnacle on my work. All the books kind of come together in this one. It's like I told my students in Miami, we have ongoing classes, and I have advanced students in Miami. This is like a bomb that we're dropping on the world. A bomb that will transform everything, if it is correctly understood, if it is correctly disseminated. But who will disseminate it? Every bomb needs a fuse. Even the greatest atomic weapon cannot be exploded if it's not used correctly. So you have to be initiated into the teaching. And this is just, what we're doing tonight is just a little introduction. Because you must expand on what you have learned here. And you must be able to learn how to practice and live it in order for you to have a real understanding of what I'm talking about. And that takes time. You have reached ignorance through time, you have to enlighten yourself in time. So, with that, I will leave it there. And if we have a few minutes for questions and answers, we'll go ahead and do that. I want to thank you very much for having me. And I hope that this brief conversation, because I've given lectures that go on for hours, and our ongoing series in Miami go on for years. But I don't want you to be daunted by that. I just want you to understand the depth of what we're doing. You can't just get a book and expect to have all the knowledge and wisdom and understanding of it just like that. Our Kemetic forefathers, they spent years studying these things. But I want you to know that it is possible if you apply yourself. No matter where you are in the world. You're here in Manchester, you're out in Siberia, wherever you may be. Peace.
Very good.
And I'm telling you that, as I said earlier, there's a new truth that is constantly coming true. And in terms, if we have to dismantle the white supremacist system, we first have to dismantle some of the long-felt ideas and beliefs that we have had in what was right and wrong. We also have to do that. I don't want to waste a lot of time now, but first, let me make a few announcements. That there's a lot. The sisters from the Black Hebrews, they have prepared some meals for you, and I'm telling you, they're very righteous meals because they are vegan, right? They don't eat meat nor chicken or any of the things that the brother talked about. And before you go, I would like you to taste that. They also have some refreshments for you, and I think one of the sisters will help you with that after. At this particular time, we will have some questions and answers. I'm sure you will get the answers. But we will also, I'd also ask a brother from the Saturday school to say a few words about the school, because right here in the center, we run the Saturday school to try and help our young black brothers and sisters, those that are not doing too well at school, even those that are doing well, because some of the brothers are doing postgraduate work and are quite able and able, right, in order to assist the children. We would like you, sisters too, young sisters, what you made in mention, the sisters, get a message. Yeah, sorry about that. Who is also working with the Saturday school. So please send your children here every Saturday morning, and we'll be glad to try it. And if some of the notices that we've sent out, we will give you a real dose of African culture and understanding of life. It's not just about cake, calamari, yeah. It's about life and the struggle of life. But we have some questions. Those of you, I'm sure, after listening to Dr. Ashby, give you a lot of food for thought, and we would like to ask a few questions. Anybody who wants to start? Come on, don't be shy. Everybody said you're God and goddesses, right? And feel proud and be assured of yourself. Get up and ask the question.
Perhaps we should, as long as it's about meditation.
Yeah? Oh, I didn't see you, but you see, I thought you did yours before, but it doesn't matter. In the course of the discourse, is there a new thing you want to bring up?
I want you to explain
Yes,
the
go on,
righteousness that transcends blood. Because we're Caribbean folks and our survival has been on the intactness of the family, that's the blood, all right? And I want you to expand on that first to understand what you're saying.
Okay, but before I do that, as long as this is a talk on meditation, why don't we do a 5-minute meditation? And then we'll lead into that. So we can kind of center ourselves in the talk that's been given and the answer that will come. So I'll ask everyone to sit straight in your seats with your feet uncrossed, hands on your thighs, closing your eyes with your back straight, allowing your abdomen to expand as you breathe in, allowing it to contract in towards your spine as you breathe out. This is, you're breathing in the goddess Sekhmet. Sekhmet is the life force, and Shu. Shu is the air. The life force that is within the air. Expanding your abdomen as you breathe in. contracting in as you breathe out. Four components of the formal meditation. First of all is the posture. Second of all, the breathing. Next is sound. And I want to use a word of power, a kinetic word of power, which is Amun. As we chant the chant, it will help to center our minds, and the vibration will bring our personality into communion with the cosmic energy, the cosmic order. So as you breathe out, Amun. Repeat after me. Breathe in, allowing your abdomen to expand. Amun. 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 Continue chanting mentally as you breathe in. Chant mentally Amun as you breathe out. Chant mentally Amun. Visualizing a light now. Visualization is the next component of meditation. We have posture, we have the breath, we have the sound. Now visualize the light at the point where your heart is. A golden light. That is the divine self within you. With each breath, visualize that light getting stronger and impurities leaving your body. If your mind strays, just bring it back to all the instructions that you've been given. Breathing in deeply. As you chant Amun, visualizing the light. Breathing out deeply as you chant Amun, visualizing the light. Feel the joy of being in the present moment. Feel the peace. Feel that it is okay. All the troubles that you have had, the problems that you've gotten into in the world, the struggles that you face, they will be there. But now you will have an ally with you. You will have the inner power, the spiritual strength. Power that will lead you to know that you can overcome, that you can succeed, that you can transcend. Because once you leave this world, the troubles will still be here in this world. You don't want to take them with you. They're here only to help you to learn, to have self-knowledge. That is why God has given trouble in the world. If you deal with trouble righteously, you transcend trouble. If you do not, trouble gets worse. You're more immersed in adversity. Head up, head up. Repeat after me.
Head up, head up.
Head up, head up.
Head up, head up.
Peace, peace. Peace, peace. Open your eyes. That's just a brief practice of meditation. I hope that you will expand on that. The answer to your question, going beyond blood in the practice of righteousness, I'll give you an experience, well, one of several experiences that I myself have. And I know that all of you have had in some way, shape, or form. Especially going up in the Afrocentric movement. You start believing that we must stand up with each other and we must support each other no matter what, and I alluded to this earlier. And we must uphold, as you see, the best aspects of our culture, and those that are not so good, we must deal with those and we must eradicate those, or work towards their eradication. They may not be able to eradicate completely, but we must work towards that. That is our spiritual work. I had an occasion to rent out a property to a gentleman. A gentleman who knew an acquaintance of ours, an African American gentleman. And we expected, he was down with the Afrocentric movement, and he was, Black Power and all the different things. And after a few weeks, no rent paid. Oh, I'll pay you when as soon as this happens, or the excuses and the lies. And so you say, well, he's black and we got to give him a chance. And here we are, thousands of dollars in the hole, and this person is still. And so you don't want to, because it's our black culture, we don't want to take them to court, and we don't want to go into all these things, right? We don't want to. And then, when it finally comes to the time, then they skip, and you can't find them, and then you're out. So which is, and this is just one of my own experiences, of several experiences that taught me the lesson. Yes, you must uphold culture, because you have come into the world as a person of African descent for a reason. Not to perpetuate African genes, as you may have been led to believe. That is not your purpose, or your only purpose. You have come here as a person of African descent to this world to learn experiences that you can only learn through an African American life. And yes, I am talking about reincarnation. Reincarnation is an integral aspect of our philosophy. Don't argue with Muata about it. If you don't want to believe in it, that's your choice. Our ancestors believed in it. I've shown this. We have shown this clearly. Karma is not an Indian origin philosophy. Reincarnation is not an Indian origin philosophy or Buddhist. You have not only lived as African Americans. See, I know this is a lot for you to take, and that's why I guess I didn't really get into it, but the question has been brought up. Because this is like something that you have to be led into. A lot of you are just now becoming used to the idea that you're Africans and you're starting to wear the colors and all that kind of thing, which is good. You're African Americans now. You haven't always been. You have existed as Chinese. You have existed as Native Americans. You have existed as, yes, Europeans. Yes. What does all this mean? What I'm getting at is that you have a greater power that you need to revere beyond culture. And that is truth. If you live by truth, you succeed. If you do not, you fail. Period. The truth was that the signs of this person and his unrighteousness were there from the beginning. But due to the ignorance of, which is actually a backlash. It's like a reverse kind of like ignorant response to racism. Your brother comes to you, and this is hard, I know. Your brother comes to you, your sister comes, they commit a crime, and they want you to shelter them. And you can say, oh, society has done this to us, and you know, it's made us weak, and we don't have any other way. So, you know, we have to allow them, you know, some leeway, and we have to harbor them, and we have to, Muata says no. Because the philosophy says no. If you do that, you're leading yourself down a slippery slope to an unrighteous society. Society where law and order breaks down, and culture breaks down, righteousness, truth breaks down. You can't live in a society like that. I'm not saying necessarily that this person should be turned over to the authorities, which are also unrighteous. I'm saying that you have to deal with it within your community, and there needs to be an addressing of that unrighteousness. What I'm getting at is that you have elders here. If someone in your community, your brother, your sister, or whatever, is doing drugs, or selling, or committing crimes, you have to deal with it. That person has to be made to suffer the consequences. That person cannot be allowed to go around with impunity, infecting society, infecting your own children. Truth is more important than blood, therefore. Truth should be actually the basis of society and culture and civilization. In fact, anyone who comes to you telling you that, hey, my brother, this is the funny thing. I'll give you another little joke. We just came from Egypt, you know that. And in recent years, it's become very big for especially African Americans, to go. I don't know how many of you have gone here, but I know African Americans are going in droves. They're really getting popular. A lot of the authors of the books that you see, they're leading groups. And now the big thing in Egypt, especially with the tourist trade, the people there are very keen on milking you for whatever money they can get out of you as a tourist. I think those of you who've gone there, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. They carry your bag, bakshish, bakshish, bakshish. They look at you, bakshish, bakshish, bakshish. And if they don't look at you, and if they give you like some service, some legitimate service, they try to confuse you and make you think that you owe them more than what you should be paying, than what you agreed on. And that's a very unrighteous, extremely. I'm looking for the backlash that is going to come for this unrighteousness. I think it's already happening in the denigration of their own life, in the stress level of their own life, in the poverty that they experience, in the poverty not just physically but mentally. Because they follow Islam out there, but I don't see that their lives are being enriched by Islam. And Islam is a wonderful religion, just like Christianity, just like any religion, if it's practiced in its true form. But anyway, let me make because I go on in length on that. So now the big thing is that they've learned. So anything that they try to get you in conversation so that they can form a connection with you and get you talking and then get you some little service to you and then get your money out of you. That's really what's the bottom line. So are you American? Are you from France? And then wherever you come from, oh, wonderful, the best country, greatest. So, just like Hollywood. And so now the big thing is that especially when you go down south where the darker people are, they call themselves Nubians. And they say, oh, look, they come up, and I'm light, and you're all dark, but whatever color you are, they will come up to you and say, oh, look, we are the same, brother, because they know that you all are with this thing. And you notice that I don't use those terms, brother and sister in that kind of sense. That we are brothers and we are both, we're all black and this kind of thing. So that we can get chummy and they can get money. They get the bakshish out of it. And this idea that we are brothers and sisters in a genetic sense has its own aspect of reality. Yes, we do exist as people of a common genetic history, but you have to understand that that is the history of your body. There's an ancient Egyptian saying that Ba Ta Ka Er Ta, and that means that the body belongs to the earth. Ba Er Pe, which means that your soul belongs to the heaven. What I'm getting at is that this is a part of your reality. It's not the entirety of your reality. And this is a higher aspect of the philosophy, once again, that I not want to get into because we have to deal with such basic issues as righteousness and order and purity in our body and our mind before we can even get to these kinds of levels. Because many of you are weak and you need something to hold on to. You want to hold on to culture. But already you know, and you know what I'm talking about. You know that there's some serious problems with our culture